G'day everyone, Coach Ray here. I'm a triathlon and marathon running coach who specialises in coaching beginner and recreational athletes to achieve their sporting as well as their health and fitness goals. Now with me today I've got an Australian coach from Brisbane, Stuart Payne, from Ready to Try Australia. Welcome Stuart.
Hi Ray.
You've got a bit of a background having done a couple of Ironman events on both sides of the Tasman, I'll quickly add. And yeah, I'll get you to introduce yourself a little bit more fully and tell us a bit about your athletic background as part of that introduction.
Yeah, certainly. I suppose I've been a bit of an athlete since school days. At 16, I joined the British Army, spent 8 years in the Army. And really my sort of focus in the Army was a hockey player. And I played hockey to quite a high standard. And as you know, Ray, being ex-forces, you do a lot of running, etc., etc. So the running was always sort of in the background, and it was something I did as part of hockey and as part of a sort of something to do while I wasn't playing hockey, really, I suppose. The biggest thing for me was once I left the Army, I was looking for something to do on the fitness side. So I sort of ran half marathons and did the London Marathon in 95 and 96, so I'm giving my age away here. And from then, it's just something I just carried on doing. So it wasn't until sort of a bit later on that there was a charity, you've probably heard of it, called Help for Heroes in the UK.
Certainly have.
So
I've actually met the CEO.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So
randomly sat next to him on a bus in Toronto last year.
Oh, okay. So being ex-forces as well, a bit of a runner on the side, I didn't class myself as a runner. I did a few half marathons and raised money for Help for Heroes. And this carried on for a year or two, but people were getting wise to the fact that I could actually do a half marathon and were saying, well, no, do you want to challenge yourself, do something completely different? So I did my first sprint triathlon in the Scottish borders, just south of Edinburgh. And it was a sprint triathlon, and it consisted of a pool swim, the 750 metres, the 20k, and obviously the 5k run. No experience of triathlon whatsoever. Didn't understand how it all worked, the mechanics and everything else. And I suppose didn't really know how to swim. It was just mainly sort of breaststroke, that sort of stuff. So first in the pool, last out of the pool. Jumped on the mountain bike, did 20 k's around the hills of the Scottish borders, got onto the run, 5k run, wasn't a problem, and at that point I was hooked, and I suppose the rest is sort of history from there. And that was sort of 2009, I suppose. We then moved to Australia, and the first thing I said to my wife was, I need to learn to swim, because you can't do breaststroke in any sort of triathlon, I suppose. Well, you can, but you
can't do it and be competitive.
Precisely, you need to learn how to do freestyle. So I, like many people, went for swimming lessons and joined a squad, and then got sort of consistent with my swimming, and then just spent time working on the cycling, all that sort of stuff. Did a couple of Ironmen, and really during that period I was training with a number of people here in Brisbane, and we had quite a bit of a crew together, and sort of we'd jump off the bike and go for a run, and it was very much down to me to say how much we should run after we jumped off the bike. And it was that point, having played hockey and been a hockey coach, it was sort of the next logical step really was to sort of move into that coaching sort of area. And that's pretty much how it happened, really. It sort of happened by accident. So I qualified with Triathlon Australia late last year, but at the same time I was also doing my sort of personal training certificates as well, which at the moment complement the triathlon coaching very well. So, and that's how we've sort of ended up where I am now with Ready to Try. So our sort of main focus is obviously coaching triathlon, and obviously looking at recreational runners as well. So that's everybody
Brilliant.
From your starting off on your sort of 5k journey right through to, I've got somebody completing the Gold Coast Marathon this year. So looking forward and excited to see how they go.
Awesome. I've got an athlete coming over from New Zealand for that as well.
Oh, okay.
It's quite common to be a personal trainer and complement your triathlon coaching. Paul Van Brink, who was the first coach I interviewed, that's up on my website. I might include a link down in the description below, but he's also a personal trainer based in Holland. So
I find it really complements well. But for my sort of first Ironman, I didn't do any strength training whatsoever. For the second one, I did, and I just found whilst it was easier, you feel a bit stronger and you feel a bit more bulletproof. You're not susceptible to injuries because you've put that sort of base work in, as it were. And I just found it sort of complemented the rest of the training quite well. Weren't as tired and all the rest of it. So and it's something that I recommend to everybody that I coach, whether they're starting on their journey right through to Ironman. And it's at least sort of one core session a week to get you started and then build on from there. So sort of highly recommend it.
How do you incorporate that strength training into people's training?
Well, when we're looking at sort of the triathlon, I suppose there's two ways. There's the way you can do it with the actual discipline, whether it be cycling or running. So, for instance, if it was running, we'd concentrate on hills, so build your strength that way. Same with cycling, I suppose, and also have at least one session a week, whether it be core or strength session. And for us here in Australia, at this point in time, we've sort of left the triathlon season. We're into the running season, as it were. So this is an ideal opportunity for people to get their strength and conditioning training in at the moment. So at the moment, we're trying to get our athletes to do 2 sessions a week. But as you know, it's not the fancy stuff of bikes and cycling and everything else. So it's just educating them the benefits of what strength training can do. So
brilliant. Let's just jump back a little bit about your coaching. What sort of successes have you had with your athletes previously?
I've recently had a guy that's just done Port Macquarie. He did it 2 years ago, so this was his third Ironman. He came to me probably about a year ago and asked if I'd be interested in coaching him because he'd obviously seen the success we've had with our sort of small group, as it were. So we sat down and looked at his sort of work-life balance and fitted everything around that, and put a few different things in that he hadn't done before. And I worked with him probably for that year, getting him ready for Port Macquarie. And at the same time, he was doing a couple of half Ironmans and all that sort of stuff.
And it's an important stepping stone, using those half Ironmen prior to building up, or as part of the build-up for the full.
Yeah. And his previous time, I think, for Cairns, I'm not sure if you've done Cairns, it's probably one of the easier courses in Australia. He says that now. but compared to Port Macquarie, it's a lot easier. And he did his Cairns time in 11:54 last year. His previous Port Macquarie time was 13 and a half hours.
Yep.
And this year with Port Macquarie, we managed to get him down to 11:57. So he's only 3 seconds off his Cairns Ironman. 3 minutes rather, sorry.
3 minutes, 3 seconds. It's still pretty damn close when you consider the differences.
We were sitting here watching him on the tracker and waiting for him to come through on the video. And we were screaming at the screen. He had 3 minutes. It was just those 3 minutes. But we concentrated a lot on his bike and a lot on his running because he's a super swimmer.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of core work with him. And it was really more about, for us, it wasn't about hammering him with training sessions. It was more about fitting in around his lifestyle and his work-life balance. So there was an opportunity to ride to work 3 times a week. So he took that, and then we integrated sessions into that. So one session would be a nice steady session, another would be intervals, etc., etc.
Yeah. And
we sort of built it around him and his family. So he would say to me, I would want this with my family, can you work around that? And that's essentially what we did. So so it wasn't, I suppose, the full-on smash fest all the way through, get this done, you have to get it done. It was really looking at him, what he could achieve in the time he had, and obviously taking into consideration his age, etc., and making sure we worked with him rather than us telling him what to do. It was a two-way conversation.
Yeah, and that's important to guarantee some form of success for them, is making the training not so much how much training can you do, and how much training can you fit in, but how much training can your body actually tolerate, recover
Yeah,
from, and get the benefits, as well as having the lifestyle that you want as part of your triathlon training. Some people want triathlon to be the sole focus, but most people actually want their life to be and their family to be their number one priority.
yeah, of course, because they're the people at the end of the day that will support you and will be there when it's all done. And you sort of have to pick up life again with them. So you need to bring them along the journey with you, and it's all about the quality and the quantity of training. And make sure if you've got that quality of training, you don't have to do the 20 hours plus a week. You can make sure they're getting a good session and they're still achieving the same thing. So
yeah. So on that, what is your training philosophy, and how do you develop the training programs for your athletes?
Well, the biggest conversation I think we have is their sort of current lifestyle and availability. I think, as you know, probably most of your listeners know, you can go onto the internet now and you can buy the latest and greatest plan and everything else, but that plan won't take into consideration whether you're a married man or a married woman, you have children, you have a high-pressure job, you're a mum, you've got a couple of kids, whatever. It doesn't take into that plan. It also doesn't take into the fact that, unfortunately, life happens, life gets in the way, and you have to move things around. So for me, I try and look at probably a 3-3-1 principle at a minimum. But you have to take that into account that people can't achieve those things. So, for instance, your 3 swim, your 3 bike, your 3 runs, and a brick session. If you can try and do them as a minimum, we're onto good fitting. But the thing is, it is about the individual, and it's their plan. It's not my plan as a coach. It's not me that's achieving the goal of trying to do a triathlon. I'm there to guide them and advise them on the best way of them getting that journey. And I suppose the biggest thing for me as a coach is I'm available all the time. I'm not one of these coaches that stands off. So if somebody calls me on a Monday morning and says, well, I can't do tonight's run, what shall I do? I'll advise them the best way of how to tackle that. Rather than if you have your set plan off the internet, you follow it to the letter, and it doesn't take into consideration, as we spoke about, life, etc. And that's when people get into trouble because they try to play catch up. So.
Yeah, and they don't have the coach to touch base with either as part of those plans often, especially if it's just one that they simply download. So having the ability to contact a coach and bounce ideas off, or as part of a community around a coach, have people that they can contact to discuss issues and problems with is an important part of the whole training process.
Yeah, very much so. And we have a private Facebook group. We only have probably 7 people actually training at the moment because we've sort of coming out of that triathlon period. But we actually have, 19 people within that Facebook group that have been or come or we've trained together. And they're all very supportive of each other. And if I don't know the answer, invariably somebody else will. And if we have to, we'll refer to a professional because not everybody knows everything. And I'd rather be upfront and honest with my athletes than try and bluff them because they'll find out.
Yeah.
So,
it's a good opportunity to research it as well. So
it's that communication and everything else that I think people buy into, and the personality and everything else. That's what they're buying, as well as your knowledge and your understanding. So.
Awesome. And as part of the development of the programs you put together, do you have key sessions that you target depending on the type of event the person is training for?
Yeah, very much so.
Milestones along the way?
It's that specificity that everybody talks about, and that's what we look at. So, for instance, for Port Macquarie, with this recent athlete, we looked at a lot of hill work because we know Port Macquarie has lots of hills. We know the swim's nice and flat, so we didn't do any ocean swimming. So with the bike, we know there's lots of hills, so we did lots of hill work on the bike, short, sharp stuff. And with the runs, we went to a couple of hilly locations here, and we ran up and down the hill a couple of times. So we tend to look at the course, see what the course does, and then build the training around that. So.
Awesome. Now, with a strong running background that you've got, do you have a favourite or a personal run workout that's your preference?
Yeah, I think for me, that you've probably heard of it, Ray, probably with your background, is the good old Yesso 800. That's my own personal favourite. My athletes don't like it when I give it to them because it's one of them. It does test you, and it can be progressive as well. So you could probably just start off with 4 1 week and just build it up and build it up. But I think that's a very good indicator of where you are pace wise. So.
I think from memory, on my website I post a swim, bike and a run workout every single week. I've been doing that for just short of 3 years. End of July in 2015 is when I first started writing those. I think the very first one I wrote was Yesso 800s. Call it my Friday fartlek run. And technically it might not be a pure fartlek. There's a bit of a play on words. But yeah, I might have to... I know I've written about it at least twice. I went through the process where as part of one of my build-ups, I tracked myself doing a series of Yesso 800s, starting off with 4 reps, going up and doing 10 reps twice. And as I was preparing for a sub 3 hour marathon, so I was trying to do them under the 3 minute mark. So I might put the link down below and people can get a bit more of an appreciation on that. But it's a real great session. It's ugly, messy, painful discomfort to physically do it. But the benefits from doing it and tracking and watching the progress is so worthwhile as an athlete as well as a coach. Yeah.
And as I say, it's a good one for progression. You can start them off easy. You can just have a simple session of 3 800s, and then you can just build it up. And it's a good introduction to that sort of interval. Faster running for athletes, because a lot of my athletes, when they start running, and you'll be aware of this as well, the good old heart rate method in the lower zones, and I think for people that haven't trained in that heart rate zone, it's a real shock because they're so used to just getting out and running at speed and thinking that's it. And then you sort of pull them back in and you put them on those lower heart rate zones, and they absolutely hate it. They absolutely detest it. And they're saying, well, why am I running so slow? This isn't going to benefit me and everything else. And then after about a month, it just suddenly clicks and they're like, wow, this is amazing. Why haven't we done it before? So that's another sort of thing I like to put in there as well. So,
getting that time in the lower zones really is great for building the efficiency of the heart and the lungs. And once that efficiency is built, the top end that you can take them to is just elevated so much when you incorporate that speed work in. But people that get caught trying to focus on that speed work right from the outset get trapped and limit their potential, which is...
and I think that's where people go wrong. And I think that sort of applies to all 3 disciplines, is people don't build the base. They naturally think because I've done a sprint triathlon, that's how the rest of triathlon works. But even in sprint triathlon, you still need to have that base, and that's what sees you through when you've used up all that good sugar and everything else, and that's all gone. The base stuff is going to see you through. So, but it's been interesting watching the guys go through the whole heart rate method as well. So
now, in a similar vein, do you have a personal favourite bike session that you either like doing yourself or often administer or prescribe for your athletes?
Yeah, I suppose the good one is the good old pyramid session where you do a minute hard, minute off, and you go all the way up to 10 and back down. Again, a killer session. People hate you for it, but it just builds the speed, and it gives them the ability to deal with that lactate threshold as it builds and everything else, and how to cope with it. And I think that's a great session. I'm a big favourite now. I'm very lucky I have a Wahoo kicker and everything that goes with that. So I've been testing out Zwift for the last probably 6 months. I'm enjoying Zwift from my own personal point of view. But previously to that, I have used things like Trainer Road and Sufferfest. And they're pretty good as well. But I think at the end of the day, nothing beats really getting out there on your bike, actually out on the road and testing yourself. We're very lucky here in sort of Brisbane that we've got quite a few hills, so it's very much
I'll just let you
rolling
know,
hills, as it were. So
Your face is just drifting off the screen. If I can get you to move to your right a bit, that's it. There we go.
I think I was getting a bit enthused about the hills. Yeah, we have some shockers here in Brisbane, Mount Cootha, Clear Mountain, Mount Glorious. They're well known sort of in the Brisbane community, and you'll often see cyclists up and down them. So.
Yeah, and hill reps are an important way of developing that on the bike strength, same as you touched on with the running. So, just going back to that pyramid session you mentioned, starting off with 1 minute, going up to 10. How much rest do you give them? Is it just 1 minute between each rep, or is it a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio?
2 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 3 minute. So yeah, it's a challenging session. So it keeps you true and honest. So which is good.
Nice. And you build them all the way up to 10, and then drop down again, back down to the 1?
I think it really depends on the individual. Ultimately, we try to get to 10, but if we're just starting out, we're obviously not going to push that individual all the way. So it really depends on what stage they're at and everything else. So.
Yeah, it all adds up at the end of the day. It can turn into quite a long session.
Yeah.
What about swimming-wise? What's your favourite workout?
My own personal favourite on the swim session is a ladder. Is starting off at 50 and then 100. So you go with 5 to 10 seconds. So you do your 50, 5 to 10 seconds rest, then 100, working up to 300-400, and then back down again. So I think all total it comes to about 3-2. So it's a good strength session as well as endurance, and it's one we've used ultimate times. It's a favourite that gets chucked in. So I think it's one that benefits a lot of people because you're just building it up slowly, and before they've suddenly realised they've done 3-2, and they're like, oh wow, we're here already. So it's a good session.
Yeah, and especially with those short rests, it's going to really enhance the aerobic system. And you don't get a time to dwell on how far you've actually swum. It's you get up to that 400, and then everything just happens after that, and you descend
especially
so
if you
quickly.
use a paddle, pull buoy and paddles as well. That really sort of helps with the strength work. But as you quite rightly say, as soon as you get to sort of 400 metres, you pretty much think, oh, that's the bulk of it done. So, and it's surprising how quickly the back down the ladder comes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's a good session. So.
Awesome. What's your number one training tip for people?
Number one training tip. I suppose for me, because most of my athletes are older athletes, and I think as you get older, the biggest thing for me would be hydration. So that includes your fueling. So after a session, make sure you get adequate hydration, water, electrolytes, etc., and your fueling. Eat decent whole foods is my big thing. And the biggest thing for me is adequate rest. I was coaching a young lady who, when I first spoke to her, she never had a rest. She just kept on going and kept on going. I eventually talked her around having a rest, and she didn't know what to do with herself. She'd been training so hard. She'd got to Kona, etc., etc. And she was so used just to going 7 days a week non-stop. We started putting the rest in there, and all of a sudden things started to happen because the adaptation was happening and everything else.
Yeah.
Just with her running pace, I think we dropped it by about 15 seconds on her pace, just because she had time to rest, and we just focused on it in a different way. So, and I think it's important that people do get that rest, because that's essentially when the magic happens. Is when your body recovers, your muscles get stronger, and you've refueled and you've hydrated properly. I think that's the best bit. So
totally agree. And the nutrition and the recovery go hand in hand intimately. It's the nutrition enhances the recovery, and also the nutrition prepares you for the next session. If you're not well fueled for the next session, you're not going to perform optimally. So you're not going to get the benefits out of that session. So it's important that they go hand in hand. There's too many people, I believe, that think, oh, I'm a triathlete, I do all this exercise, I can eat what I want. Admittedly, having a bit in moderation of some of the finer things in life isn't necessarily a bad thing, but using it as an excuse to constantly have that is a bad thing.
I think that's it, and the people or the athletes that I'm dealing with as well, because they're older, they do like to have a drink on a Friday night or whatever. I have a young lady. I'll call her a young lady, who's going to be training with me for an Ironman in Cairns, and she's when we initially sit down and have a chat, we talk about what we spoke about already in terms of your life, your work-life balance, etc., etc., and we sort of work through what a 7-day week or 7 days would look like, training, etc., with work and life. And it was quite amusing. She put down wine and cheese on a Friday night. And that's her thing. That's wine and cheese on a Friday night. And we deal with that. That's what she does. She sits down with her husband and her family. They get together. They have that wine and cheese. So we look at ways of mitigating things on the Saturday morning when she trains. So whether it be an easy session or whatever. But that's how we work. We're not saying that no, you don't have to drink, or no, you can't eat this. But at the same time, you've got to be, as you quite rightly say, you've got to be ready for your next session. So you have to fuel properly. You have to get that adequate sleep. So we're in it to do it for fun and to achieve things and to get better and better. So we have to take all these other things into account as well. So
on that same train of thought, what's the biggest problem you see with endurance athletes? What's the biggest faults out there?
I suppose we've already touched on it, is not building the base. After doing a number of Ironman, I think the biggest thing is that base is what sees you through towards the end, whether it be 9, 10, 11, 12, 17 hours. That base is going to see you through. And again, with a decent nutrition, hydration, etc., that will get you through your event. So for me, working with all athletes, whether it be an Ironman or a sprint distance triathlon, or even people just starting out on their sort of running journey, is building that base. Once you've got that adequate base, you can then start to introduce your speed work and your hills, etc., etc. And I suppose the other thing that I've learned from being a personal trainer as well is building a base strength and conditioning as well. I've been working with a lady who trains or takes part in karate, and she came to me and just said, "Oh, would you train? Would you train me?" And I said, "Yeah, certainly." So we spent probably the first 18 weeks just building up a base strength and conditioning routine. It's not until the sort of last 6 weeks that we started introducing things like HIIT, so high intensity training, so she gets more benefit from it. But we just wanted to make sure that everything was in place so that when we do the HIIT, she's got the strength, she's got the conditioning there, so the body knows that it's prepared for it, it's strong enough, etc. And that's the same for triathlon. I think you have to have that base there ready before you do all the harder stuff. I think so.
Totally agree.
But yeah.
So whereabouts do you get most of your clients from?
At the moment, as I say, pretty much we started in November, so it's all been word of mouth. I haven't really had to advertise per se, but I'm not sure about yourself, Ray, but I don't want too many athletes. I've sort of got a number that I want to limit myself to because of the service I give, potentially. I speak to most of my athletes probably 2 to 3 times a week. That's without them contacting me on a daily basis. So I'm fairly open coach in that regard. Yeah. But as you can imagine, you don't want too many people because then it just becomes a chore.
Totally agree.
You're losing that quality of information and advice, etc., that you're giving to them. So.
Yeah, and having that, the contactability, the opportunity for your athletes to contact you through a number of different means. I presume you talked about the private Facebook group, and contacting you by phone or text. Email is probably another common one as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting. The technology has been fantastic. We use all of them really. It's down to the individual, as I spoke about when we first speak with athletes. We give them a questionnaire that they need to complete. We ask them all sorts of questions, right through to what their goals are, the lifestyle, how much water they drink, alcohol, smoking, medical history, etc., etc. We really delve into it to make sure we've got all the information so we can make these informed decisions. And we sort of ask them, I suppose one of the questions is, how would you like to be contacted? Because a few of the old athletes don't want to be involved with Facebook or whatever it is, or the flavour of the month. Most of them are happy to send a text or just get on the end of the phone.
Yeah.
And it's just fitting around them, and I'm quite happy to work with that. So, which is good.
Awesome. And what's the best way for a potential athlete or client to contact you?
Well, we're on Facebook. We're Ready to Try, so it's just all one word. So it's ReadyToTri, and that's us, just Ready to Try.
I'll put a link to that down the bottom in the description as well, so people can find it nice and easy.
Yep. So we have a Facebook page, and we have Instagram page, so that's Ready to Try _BNE. And then we have our Gmail as well, which is readytotry@gmail.com. So. And we don't limit ourselves to triathlon. Running, as we've mentioned, we've got quite a few people doing Gold Coast Marathon.
Yeah. Just for confirmation before we go on, with both the Facebook and the Instagram page and the Gmail address, the 2 in it is actually spelling it TO as opposed to the number 2, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it.
I've got the links and I'll put them in below, but if people are just watching or listening along, going to type it, I thought I'd jump in there so people get that right and get in contact with you.
Yeah, not a problem. And really, we, as I said, we're sort of word of mouth. So a lot of my athletes have been people that I've previously worked with, have trained with. And we do have an association with a local tri shop here in North Brisbane, and we get quite a few athletes through them as well, looking for a tri coach. We don't run a tri club as such, so what we tend to do is we do a bi-monthly interval running session that we hold on a Saturday, and we're just starting up a strength and conditioning twice a month as well that people can come along to. The interval sessions dead cheap. For an hour, it's $5. People come along, meet like-minded people, which is quite good. The strength and conditioning is obviously a bit more, but it gets everybody together. They can have a chat. We always go for a coffee afterwards, and we help people out. And I'm not precious in giving free information or whatever. I'm more than happy to sit down and have a yarn with somebody. I'm not one of these.
It's all about building that relationship in my mind, and hence the reason why I publish a free workout on my website every single week.
Precisely, yeah. I'm exactly the same. I don't believe in charging the earth or whatever for all this sort of information. You know, if you want it, you can find it on the internet, and people are looking for the personality, the coach, the advice, etc. You know, that's what they're buying into essentially. So
awesome. Next time I'm over in Brisbane, I might have to try and come along and time it for the right Saturday.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Anybody's more than welcome to come along, and we cater for all levels and abilities. As I say, we've got people that are just starting on their triathlon journey or running journey, right through to Ironman running, and they're a good friendly bunch. I'm very lucky in that everybody gets on very well. We all go for coffee afterwards, and have a good old chat. So no, very very good with that. So
awesome. Well, thanks for your time today, Stuart. Any final comments before we wrap things up?
No, I'm more than happy with people to contact me if they've got any other questions or whatever. Or if they're in Brisbane, want to join any of the sessions, please do. More than happy if people are considering looking for a coach. We have lots of references we can give you, put you in touch with people that have trained with me. So we can look after you.
An interesting and dynamic website as well, which makes it interesting for people to go check that out.
Yes, yeah. So we're just in the process of with Wix at the moment. So we're looking at upgrading that shortly. So it's been a hectic 8 months, shall I say? It's sort of blown up, but no, very pleased with where we are at the moment. So
no worries. Well, all the best, and we'll catch you around.
Yeah. Cheers, Ray. Thank you very much.
No worries.